dying?
Please say hello to Death himself, the Grim Reaper!
My name's Will, and I'm dead. I know it's sad, but hey, a lot of awesome people are dead. It happens.
And who knows? After long work and dedication in the long run.
What long run? In the long run, we're all dead. I'm not going to die. You see, I'm into this thing where if I get sick, real sick, where I'm about to go, they just take me away and freeze me.
Although he is certain to die, perhaps from a household accident, which accounts for 65% of all unnatural deaths.
All right, we did not die today. I call that an unqualified success.
You're all gonna die. What's wrong with it?
I'm dying too.
You're going to die.
Prepare to die.
Death is full of surprises, huh?
You have no idea.
Welcome to Mortality Movies. I'm your host, Gail Rubin, the doyen of death. That's death, not death. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. And that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan a funeral or memorial service. In this series, we show you film clips and television episode scenes that relate to death, grief, funerals, and end-of-life issues. Studies indicate you will remember 30% more information that you learn related to a television show or a film clip than just anything a speaker would tell you. I am joined by our panel of death and grief experts today, Jane Westbrook, death educator, and Kelly Sandin, who is a spiritual counselor who specializes in grief and end-of-life issues. So we have got an action-packed program for you today. The topic is personalizing funerals. And by the way, if you are watching this show on YouTube, just know that the film clips will be separate and accessible through the links in the description box below. Our first film is from the 2002 movie Undertaking Betty. This is a very funny film. If you can watch the entire thing, I highly recommend it. Christopher Walken plays a progressive funeral director in a small town in Wales, and he has a vision to make funerals truly reflective of the deceased's passions in life. So let's watch this clip and see what he comes up with. This is not good, he says. That was actually a brilliant funeral for a Star Trek fan. However, imposing it on the bereaved husband and surprising him with it maybe isn't such a good idea.
You know, you and I both we like the creative, let's say. We like the creative funerals and the creative ways of doing things. But this one tests even my limits. Yeah, but yes, that was a good one to pull that one off.
And I was gonna say, I like the idea of going towards somebody and saying, okay, this is, what do they like, what are their hobbies, what are their fantasies? But it's a little shocking that it wasn't discussed with the husband, like okayed by the husband. If he had some heads up, he may have embraced it. Yeah.
And certainly for a Star Trek fan, this would have been fantastic. Yeah.
But I don't think he was.
Right.
The husband.
No, the husband wasn't. No,
Poor guy wasn't.
And he was surprised, and of course that's part of the comedy of this. But Undertaking Betty is it's a great film to watch in its entirety because there's a traditional funeral director in this small town in Wales, and then there's Frank Featherbed, and they're kind of competing against each other. So it's a fun look at the funeral business as well in a small town with small providers. Our next film clip is Get Low. This came out in 2009, and it's based on a true story. A gentleman named Felix is the name of the guy in the film. He actually held his own funeral while he was alive. He wanted to hear what people would say about him. So this film, Get Low, shows possibly how that first meeting with the funeral director who set up this man's funeral could have gone. He's considered kind of a curmudgeon in town, but that could be just the Hollywood version of the true story. Let's watch this clip. Like what? I love this scene because it really challenges the funeral directors to think outside the box, that they were so proud to show him their caskets. And they don't know, but Felix Bush is a woodworker. That's why he's got his own box already. But this scene really challenged them to, what's a funeral party? You gotta be deceased to have a funeral. But he didn't. He's showing them you don't have to be.
You know, I think the great thing about this is that it's actually starting to happen in
Yes.
today's world more often. Kelly and I had a friend who last March was, so before she died, we had a party. And we all said the things that we would say at her funeral. But we said it to her face, and she was in a throne, and she had flowers, and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was the music, it was the party, huh?
It was amazing, and it brought people together and dancing, and it was a celebration that just uplifted everybody in the room. Even though she was passing and everybody knew it, there was such a love that filled the room. It was amazing.
And stories,
Yeah.
and stories and stories and more stories. So it was really what he asked for,
Yeah.
is I want a party, and I
Yeah.
want the stories.
Yeah.
And nobody got shot. Nobody got shot.
Well, and we do have another clip that talks about the idea of being alive at your own funeral, from Waking Ned Devine, which came out in 1998. The setup is Ned Devine wins the lottery and dies from the shock of realizing he's won all this money. And his fellow townsfolk in this remote town, little village, plot to claim the money. And Michael O'Sullivan is the character who will take the place of Ned Devine to claim the money. However, the man from the lottery has shown up and stumbled onto Ned's funeral, and Jackie O'Shea, who's about to give a eulogy, has to think on his feet very quickly. Let's watch this. So how nice to, sit at the front and hear what people would say about you. And we kind of commented about that regarding the Get Low clip. But there was just a sweet sentimentality in this clip that I think really resonates about that whole idea of having a living funeral.
I agree. I've actually attended another one, and it was the most heart-touching stories, because it was run like a funeral, and people walked up to the stage and did a eulogy. It wasn't a party, people weren't sitting around, and that's the way she wanted it. And the stories just touched everybody's heart. Nobody left that hadn't cried about just the heart, sweet heart, like we saw in the clip.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
I gotta think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there may need to be an after-death funeral, but to have the celebration of life before, that's when the real celebration of life happens, I think, is to do it beforehand.
Yeah.
I love that. In fact, we've had two people, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, in our circle that have had
these living funerals.
Living funerals.
Yeah.
Parties
been
before
perfect.
parties before the death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of parties, here's another funeral that's kind of over the top. We've shown you a number of clips from the series The Kaminsky Method. And this funeral, when this show first came out, people were calling me and saying, you have to see this funeral. So the setup here is Eileen Newlander knew she was dying. She had cancer. So after her death, following her instructions, she wrote out her instructions about what she wanted, and they came through as best they could to the letter of her letter saying what she wanted at her funeral. Let's watch this. Eileen Newlander had said she wanted Patti LaBelle to sing Voulez-vous coucher avec moi, she wanted Jay Leno to be the MC, and wanted Barbara Streisand to sing The Way We Were, and that was, as Sandy Kaminsky said, I don't think Streisand does funerals. But, so again, a funeral more as a celebration of life. And I love showing these scenes to give people an idea of what's possible, which is really, the sky's the limit if you want to bring some creativity to it. And maybe we need to educate the funeral director business about, being more creative and flexible in that regard.
I start with the people. It's easier,
the families.
I think, with the families. Yeah. I think it's easier to educate the people than it is to change the industry. So just getting people to say, what would it really look like if we were going to celebrate my life? My life is going to look different than Kelly's and yours. But let's make it personal. Yeah, I love that.
And I love the fact that it actually inspires imagination and choice, which I think sometimes people may go into a funeral not knowing they have either.
Right.
And so these movies, as well as the discussion and the education part, is beautiful to give people choice, to use their imagination.
Yeah, yeah. And not be afraid of it. It is the party no one wants to plan, unfortunately. Yeah. Now, there is a longer version of this funeral scene. Sandy Kaminsky does get up and speak, and he is followed by Norman Newlander. I don't think it's very common, though, for the bereaved spouse to get up and talk. I know when my husband died, I didn't want to get up and talk. But I guess it depends on the individuals involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is available on YouTube, the full funeral with those eulogies. And I did want to make mention of another film. We don't have time to show it as part of this program, but you can access it on YouTube. It's called Happy Funeral. It's a Chinese film about a personalized event where it really changes. In China, funerals are very much ritualized and have specific things. You bow to the photo of the deceased when you come in. And this group of young kids who rented from their landlady, she was 84, she dies, and they put together what they call a happy funeral for her. And it's very, very creative and celebratory. And there is a Chinese funeral director who comes and he comments at the end that maybe this industry can change and we can do these kind of things and make a funeral that much more personalized. That is our show for today about personalizing funerals. I did want to remind you that we have a contest. As you may have noticed, the opening and the closing credits of this program include a collection of clips from television and film. And if you can guess the sources of all of those film clips, you can win a t-shirt from A Good Goodbye. Just put your list together and send it to me, gail@agoodgoodbye.com. And you can win this shirt that says, talking about sex won't make you pregnant, talking about funerals won't make you dead. So do that. Start a conversation today.
I'm going to buy you these books, I think, because I think you should read them, instead of that cat book.
That's pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah, because I'm obsessed with death, I think. It's a big subject with me, yeah.
Death. To die. To expire. To pass on. To perish. To peg out. To push up daisies. To push up posies. To become extinct. Curtains. Deceased. Demised. Departed and defunct.
I'm watching Cocoon. The spaceship is taking the old people into space. That's the happy ending for old people.
If only were that easy, huh?
Yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater 30 years ago. But it's a whole different thing when you're in the demographic.
So bad. It's like a Black Mirror. So bad.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think it looks like death.
David,
it looks like mourning.
Every movie in every cinema is about death. Death sells.